Imagine you're sitting down on a Tuesday night to watch a gritty, unresolved, cold case documentary from a small town in Texas.
Right, a very specific, heavy vibe.
Yeah, exactly. The mystery is deep, the atmosphere is heavy, and your brain is just fully engaged in playing detective.
Sure.
But when the video finishes, instead of the algorithm aggressively feeding you 3 more murder documentaries, the channel hands you like a chipper 1950s toothpaste commercial.
Which is incredibly jarring.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And after that, a highly stylized story about a mythical samurai.
Just a complete left turn.
Right. I mean, on paper, that sounds like a chaotic, unwatchable mess. You'd think the creator had literally lost their mind.
You really would.
But today, we're unpacking a strategy document that proves this exact recipe might just be the ultimate cure for the exhaustion that is currently plaguing the internet.
Because, I mean, the 2026 media landscape has absolutely pushed viewers to their breaking point when it comes to, hyper-specialization.
Oh, 100%.
If you read any contemporary guide on audience building, the single most repeated commandment is always to niche down.
Always. Niche down.
Right. The conventional wisdom dictates that you cannot simply be a channel about history. You must be the channel that exclusively covers, naval battles of the 16th century.
Which, that makes sense for a machine, right? The assumption is that algorithms require a singular microscopic focus to categorize and serve your content to a specific viewer.
Exactly. It needs to know exactly which box to put you in.
But think about what that is actually like for you, the human viewer, on the other end of the screen.
It's exhausting.
It really is. We've talked before about niche fatigue. It's that feeling of burnout when your feed becomes just a relentless wall of the exact same topic, presented in the exact same tone, day after day.
Yeah, you might love 16th century naval history, but you don't want to live there 24/7.
Nobody does. So today, we are throwing that niche down advice completely out the window. We are taking a deep dive into a really fascinating strategy document detailing a specific channel on Rumble called The Rich Vernadeau Show.
And our focus for this deep dive is how this creator is actively weaponizing eclecticism.
Weaponizing it. I love that.
Well, it fits. Because what we are looking at in these sources isn't a standard content creator just making videos for a feed.
Right.
This document lays out a blueprint for a much more expansive architecture. It really functions as a full-blown digital network.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because calling an internet channel a digital network is a massive claim.
It's a big term, yeah.
When we think of network, we usually think of massive broadcast television structures with executives and huge programming blocks.
Exactly.
But the source document explicitly states that this wild, multi-tiered approach is a major strength right now. It points out that while many creators are currently struggling with that niche fatigue we just mentioned.
Right, they're burning out their audiences.
Exactly. But this channel is thriving precisely because it acts as a one-stop shop.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the strategy document explicitly compares the Rich Vernadeau Show to the Ed Sullivan approach.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. We're talking about applying a mid-20th century television programming strategy to a modern digital platform like Rumble.
Sounds completely counterintuitive today.
It does. But by providing a wide variety of acts or genres under one umbrella, the creator stops competing for just a fleeting moment in a viewer's algorithmic feed.
They aren't just a swipe away.
Exactly. Instead, the channel becomes a destination. It is built to appeal specifically to viewers with what the document identifies as diverse, retro, and inquisitive tastes.
I want to focus on that destination idea because I think the best way to visualize this isn't a television set at all.
Okay, what are you thinking?
Think of it less like a standard internet channel and more like a massive theme park like Disneyland.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. You have Frontierland, Tomorrowland,
Yeah.
Fantasyland. They're completely different genres with completely different aesthetics.
Yeah.
But because they're all contained within the same walled garden, shifting between them doesn't feel jarring. It feels like an adventure.
That is an excellent framework for understanding the document's structure, actually.
Thanks.
Because if a creator attempts to be a one-stop shop without a rigid framework, it just devolves into a chaotic upload history that alienates everyone.
Yeah, it's just a mess.
But Vernadeau avoids this by strictly organizing his eclectic mix into 8 distinct pillars of content.
8 pillars.
Right. He is curating a sprawling theme park, but the pathways between the different areas are meticulously designed.
So let's walk through those pathways. We'll start with the sections of this digital theme park that are firmly grounded in the real world.
Okay, the reality stuff.
Exactly. The source material outlines a major thematic grouping that targets that inquisitive taste you mentioned.
Right.
This is all about reality, investigation, and exploration. And it's fascinating where he starts building this network because the foundation is hyper-local.
Yeah, Pillar 1 is hyper-local reporting.
Right. We are talking about highly specific reporting centered almost entirely on Paris, Texas, like local community news and incredibly raw street-level driving tours of the town.
And then, building on that foundation, the strategy immediately expands the scope while maintaining that same investigative tone.
With Pillar 3, right?
Exactly. Pillar 3 incorporates a heavy emphasis on true crime and cold cases. And what's really notable in the source text is how this true crime element scales.
Also,
It bridges the gap. It investigates highly specific local Paris, Texas cases, but then broadens out to larger, wider-reaching investigative documentaries.
okay. And rounding out this reality-based inquisitive grouping is a heavy focus on urbex, or urban exploration, which is Pillar 5.
Yeah, the urbex stuff is huge.
It's basically an entire section of the network dedicated to physical tours of abandoned buildings, forgotten ruins, and what the document poetically calls lost places.
So you have street-level local driving tours, true crime investigations, and boots-on-the-ground explorations of abandoned ruins.
Now, I have to push back here for a second,
Go for it.
because this is where my brain starts to kind of glitch when I look at standard audience demographics.
Okay.
How does incredibly localized content, like literally a dashboard camera driving down a random residential street in Paris, Texas, attract a broad international Rumble audience?
It sounds weird when you put it like that.
Right. Especially when it sits right alongside explorations of decaying buildings.
Yeah.
If I'm living in New York, London, or Tokyo, why on earth do I care about a local community update from a small town in Texas?
Well, you're hitting on the core mechanism of the entire strategy. It's not about the geography.
Okay.
It's about the psychology. You have to look at the underlying motivation of the viewer.
The inquisitive taste.
Yes. These three areas, hyperlocal news, true crime, and urbex, they all function as engines of voyeurism. They satisfy the inquisitive trait by offering unfiltered access to places and secrets most people never get to see.
Oh, it's the urge to look behind the curtain.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
Think about how they function structurally. A street-level driving tour in a town you've never visited isn't just local news to an outsider.
What is it then?
It's an immersive, almost voyeuristic window into a raw, unpolished reality. It is the exact opposite of a highly produced influencer vlog.
Yeah, makes sense.
And true crime is the ultimate inquisitive format, right? Tapping into our primal desire to uncover hidden truths and solve puzzles.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone loves a good puzzle.
And urban exploration is essentially physical archaeology.
Wait, I love that phrase. Physical archaeology.
Yeah. The viewer is walking through the decaying ruins of a lost place, piecing together the history of a forgotten structure from just the debris left behind.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see the thread now.
It's all connected.
So whether you are analyzing the psychological puzzle of a local cold case, voyeuristically driving down a dusty street in Texas, or investigating the physical puzzle of a ruined hospital, all of these elements anchor this digital network in a very gritty, mysterious, and tangible reality.
Exactly.
The viewer isn't just passively consuming content, they're actively investigating alongside the creator.
And that builds a tremendous amount of trust and authenticity. The viewer feels grounded.
Right.
However, the strategy document acknowledges a crucial limitation of human psychology.
Which is?
We can only handle so much heavy, gritty reality before our cognitive load just maxes out.
Oh yeah, you get burned out.
Right. Once a viewer's thirst for mystery and raw reality is satisfied, they require a psychological break. The network has to pivot sharply.
Which brings us back to the Ed Sullivan concept.
Yes.
Because a true variety show needs escapism to balance out the heavy reality.
Yeah.
You can't just subject your audience to intense investigative journalism and decaying ruins for 3 hours straight.
No, you'd exhaust them.
You need the acrobats and the plate spinners to come out and lighten the mood.
That's a great way to put it.
And that leads us directly into the channel's massive secondary engine, which is the retro block.
Right. This is where we see the channel catering aggressively to the retro taste mentioned in the strategy profile.
Right, so we're looking at 4 entire pillars here.
It dedicates half of its overall thematic framework to vintage media and nostalgia. It is actively creating a highly curated, deeply stylized view of the past.
And we really need to break down the sheer volume and variety of curation happening here because it's wild.
It really is.
It starts with Pillar 4, which the document calls the Nostalgia Vault. And it's important to note this isn't just a random dump of old video clips.
No, it's very deliberate.
The source specifically highlights the archiving of 1950s to 1970s TV commercials and retro advertising capsules.
Which is fascinating because it serves as this visual museum of mid-20th century consumer psychology and commercial aesthetics.
Yeah. And then from there, the viewer can move into Pillar 6, the Cinema Corner.
Right.
Which is where Vernadeau curates classic movie trailers, delivers film noir reviews, and even hosts full feature-length public domain films.
A completely different length and format, but maintaining that strict vintage mid-century aesthetic.
Right. And the sensory experience doesn't stop with video. There is Pillar 7, called the Jukebox, which focuses specifically on curating 1960s oldies and exploring music history.
So we've got ads, movies, music.
And finally, rounding out the retro block, is Pillar 8, an entire section dedicated to classic 1950s and 60s animation. The cartoon block.
When you pull back and analyze those four elements together, the vintage commercials, the film noir, the 1960s music, and the classic animation, you see a highly deliberate, cohesive viewing experience emerging.
It's essentially recreating the feeling of a mid-century Saturday morning.
Yes.
Or maybe like a late-night trip to a vintage drive-in theater entirely within this Rumble channel.
That's the exact vibe.
You've got the cartoons, you've got the quirky old commercials playing between features, you've got the classic music playing through your car radio, and the shadowy film noir up on the big screen.
It's world building.
It is. And here's where it gets really interesting for me. Vernadeau isn't just uploading old stuff. He is deliberately programming different formats and tempos of old stuff.
What's fascinating here is how this functions as a masterclass in audience retention.
Right.
Think about how modern users consume content. If you just finished watching a heavy, highly analytical, hour-long true crime documentary from the first half of this network,
your brain needs a palate cleanser.
Exactly. On a typical niche channel, the creator has absolutely nothing else to offer you.
Right, because they only do true crime.
Yes. So you would be forced to leave their channel entirely, go back out to the algorithmic feed, and hunt for something relaxing. The moment you click away, that creator has lost you.
You bounce to another creator's channel to decompress.
The genius of the digital network model is that you don't have to leave the ecosystem to find that decompression.
Right.
The network catches you as you fall. It anticipates your fatigue and says, are you burned out from the cold case? You don't need to leave. Here is a 2-minute retro toothpaste commercial from 1958.
I love that.
Or here is a colorful, simple 1950s cartoon. Or just turn off your screen entirely and listen to this 1960s oldie. The dramatic shift in format and tempo keeps you engaged, but it keeps you within Vernadeau's walled garden.
It fundamentally respects the viewer's cognitive load.
Absolutely.
It knows exactly when you are primed for a deep dive into an hour-long public domain film, and it knows when your brain just needs a quick, brightly colored dopamine hit from a 1970s toy commercial.
And because it's all filtered through that specific mid-century retro aesthetic, it still feels like it belongs in the same theme park.
Right.
The transition from gritty Texas reality to 1950s nostalgia doesn't feel like a glitch. It feels like changing channels on an old analog television set.
Okay, so we have mapped out a huge portion of this network. We've covered 7 of the 8 pillars.
We have
the gritty, grounded reality engine, the true crime, the urban exploration, the hyper-local reporting, and we have the massive retro escapism block, the vintage commercials, the cartoons, the film noir, the music.
It feels incredibly balanced.
It really does. You have the heavy and the light, the reality and the escapism. But the source document reveals one final, wildly different thematic pillar that acts as the channel's absolute creative wildcard.
And this raises an important question about how far a creator can stretch an audience before the elastic just snaps.
Yeah, because this is out there.
It is, because this final element targets the diverse taste category in a way that truly pushes the Ed Sullivan approach to its absolute limit.
We're talking about Pillar 2, the section of the network dedicated to the Mergatroid City Universe.
Right.
Now, the source document lists out some very specific lore elements that are contained within this section. It mentions remote city fiction.
Okay.
It highlights specific strange characters like Uncle Frank and something called Apronhead.
Apronhead.
Yeah. And it also includes, out of nowhere, Furudiki samurai lore.
I mean, it is a staggering departure from everything else we've discussed.
Completely.
It introduces surreal original mythology into a channel that has, up until this point, been built entirely on documenting reality or archiving historical media.
I have to stop and ask, wait, how do we logically go from actual real-world driving tours of a Texas town in 1950s animation to something called Apron Head and Fudiki Samurai lore?
It's a leap.
It's a huge leap. Everything else has a clear real-world or historical anchor. Where does bizarre original fiction fit into this architecture?
While it initially sounds jarring, a deeper analysis reveals that this is actually the crux of the entire strategy.
Really?
Yes, this is where Vernadeau truly flexes the power of not niching down.
Okay, explain that.
Well, while the other 7 pillars of his network curate the real world and history, Pillar 2, the Mergatroid City Universe, is pure, unadulterated, original world building.
So it's his own intellectual property.
Exactly.
But how does he convince a true crime audience to watch a fictional samurai story?
By understanding that a viewer's psychographic profile is stronger than their genre preference.
Oh, that's deep.
The strategy fundamentally trusts the audience's intelligence. It wagers that a viewer whose inquisitive nature enjoys the dark, twisting puzzle of an unresolved cold case, or whose retro tastes appreciate the stylized shadows and moral ambiguity of film noir.
Yeah?
That is the exact type of person who will appreciate the unfolding, mysterious lore of Mergatroid City.
Ah. Because the emotional payload is the same, even if the wrapper is different.
Exactly.
The person who enjoys walking through an abandoned, ruined building and piecing together its history is absolutely going to be intrigued by a mysterious, fictional universe featuring cryptic characters like Uncle Frank and Apron Head.
They are both exercises in exploring the unknown.
Wow, yeah.
Consider the implications of that connection. The format shifts from reality to fiction, but the psychological reward remains consistent.
The audience wants depth.
They want depth, they want a puzzle to solve, and they want a highly distinct aesthetic. Things like Apron Head or the intricate lore of the Fudiki Samurai function as puzzle boxes for an inquisitive audience.
Makes total sense.
Mergatroid City provides that complex mythology, perfectly complementing the reality and retro wrappers of the rest of the network.
So what does this all mean?
Let's bring it all together.
When you pull back and look at the complete architectural blueprint Vernadeau has built, this 8-pillar program guide, it's actually a brilliant ecosystem.
It is.
You log onto this Rumble channel, and you start by grounding yourself with raw, local news from Paris, Texas. From there, you shift gears into a deep analytical dive on a local cold case.
Right, you're in the reality engine.
But then your brain gets tired, so you take a breather by watching a reel of 1950s TV commercials and a classic cartoon.
The retro escapism.
Exactly. Later, you fulfill your sense of adventure by exploring an abandoned hospital in the real world before diving headfirst into the surreal, fictional puzzle of the Fudiki Samurai in Mergatroid City.
You're jumping between all these different pillars seamlessly.
And you finally end your night decompressing with a classic film noir while listening to 1960s oldies.
It represents a totally self-sustaining universe. It provides every single flavor, heavy, light, real, fictional, analytical, relaxing, that a specific type of inquisitive viewer could possibly want in a single day of media consumption.
It really is the ultimate cure for that niche fatigue. It's like having access to the entire theme park with a meticulously designed map instead of just being locked inside the same single ride for eternity.
I agree completely. If there's one core takeaway from analyzing this strategy document, it is this. In an internet landscape that is absolutely plagued by algorithm-induced exhaustion, building an eclectic, variety-style network is not a sign of a creator lacking focus.
No, not at all.
When you purposefully combine hyper-local reality, retro nostalgia, and bizarre original fiction into a structured, easily navigable ecosystem, it is a highly sophisticated retention strategy.
Yeah.
It respects the fact that human beings have beautifully diverse, multifaceted interests.
It treats the viewer like a complex, curious person, rather than just a flat data point that only clicks on one specific type of thumbnail.
Right.
And that brings us to the end of our exploration today, but I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Oh, this is a good one.
We've seen how the Rich Vernadeau Show successfully engineers a cohesive network out of Paris, Texas true crime, 1950s cartoons, abandoned ruins, and the fictional Mergatroid City.
Quite the mix.
So look at your own wildly diverse interests. Think about the eclectic combination of things you are secretly obsessed with when the algorithm isn't watching.
Yeah, what's in your vault?
Exactly. If you were forced to build your own 8-pillar digital network today, what incredibly random but fascinating combination of topics would you broadcast to cure the world's niche fatigue? What is your personal version of jumping from a 1960s jukebox to the lore of Apronhead?
I love that.
Because maybe the internet doesn't need another hyper-specialized expert. Maybe it just needs you to be your own variety show. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive into the Rich Vernadeau Rumble channel with us today. Until next time, keep exploring, and maybe